There's something nobody tells men enough. We live in an era obsessed with red flags. Scroll through any corner of the internet, TikTok, Twitter, relationship forums, dating podcasts, and you'll find an endless parade of warning signs, toxic traits, and deal breakers. Everyone's become an expert at spotting what's wrong, what's broken, what to run from. And somewhere in all of that noise, something quietly got lost. Green flags, not just what they look like, but the fact that a lot of men are already carrying them every single day without ever realizing it. The man who makes a plan instead of shrugging his shoulders. The man who says, I was wrong without turning it into a fight. The man whose presence alone makes a room feel a little steadier, a little safer. These men exist. You might be one of them. And the heartbreaking truth is, you probably don't even know it. This isn't about perfection. It never was. It's not about having the right car, the right body, the right Instagram aesthetic. It's about something so much quieter than that. The subtle, almost invisible behaviors that signal to a woman, this man is real. This man is safe. This man is someone worth building something with. So I want to walk you through 6 of those signs. 6 things that, if they sound like you, mean you are already further ahead than you think. Not just dateable, genuinely, deeply boyfriend material. 1, you take initiative without making it about control. Let me paint you a picture. It's Friday evening. A man texts a woman and says, I don't know, what do you want to do? She stares at her phone. She suggests something. He says, I'm fine with whatever. She suggests something else. He shrugs again, digitally, of course. 20 minutes later, they're both frustrated and nobody's eaten dinner yet. Now imagine a different man. He texts her and says, there's a rooftop place I've been wanting to try. Dinner at 7, I'll send you the address. That's it, simple, clean, done. Same Friday night, completely different energy. Initiative is one of the most underrated green flags in existence. And most men don't even realize they're being graded on it. Not harshly, but noticed. The way you notice when a room suddenly smells like something good. It's not about being the boss. It's not about steamrolling someone's preferences or deciding everything without consideration. It's about creating clarity in a world that is absolutely drowning in ambiguity. Women are navigating a dating landscape that is exhausting. Half plans, maybes. We should hang out sometime with no follow-through. Men who wait for her to steer the ship and then complain that she's too controlling. The man who steps forward, who makes the plan, who follows up after a date, who takes care of the small things without needing to be asked twice. That man feels like a breath of fresh air in a room that's been stuffy for far too long. And here's what I want you to understand. The attraction isn't to dominance. It's not a power thing. What's magnetic about initiative is what it communicates beneath the surface. It says, I am someone who shows up. I am someone who can be counted on. I am someone who will make things move forward instead of letting them float around in comfortable, non-committal uncertainty. That is leadership. Not the loud, chest-puffed kind, the quiet, grounded kind that actually does something. If you are naturally a person who steps forward, who takes action without needing applause for it, who handles the logistics so she doesn't have to carry all of it alone, that does not go unnoticed, not even close. 2, your calm is a gift. You don't know you're giving. There are some things in life you can't fake. One of them is energy. You can dress a certain way. You can say all the right things. You can be charming and funny and interesting for approximately 45 minutes before the real you surfaces. And for the people who are present with you, who actually feel you in their space, that real version of you is what leaves an impression. Men who carry a calm, regulated, steady energy are rare. And women feel that rarity the moment they're around it. Think about what it's like to be around someone who is always on the edge of their nerves, who flares up quickly, who takes a stressful Monday and makes sure everyone around them feels it too, who turns small disagreements into something that requires damage control. Being near someone like that requires constant vigilance. You're always subtly scanning. Is today a good day? What's his mood? Should I bring this up now or wait? It is exhausting in a way that's hard to put into words until you've lived it. Now think about the opposite. A man who, when something goes sideways, takes a breath instead of a swing. Who can hear a frustrating piece of news without letting it detonate? Who, in moments of tension, becomes quieter rather than louder? Who communicates instead of combusting? That man's presence says something that words never could. It says, "You are safe here." And safety, real, felt, bone-deep emotional safety, is one of the most powerful foundations for lasting love. Not butterflies, not chemistry, not jaw-dropping attraction, though those things matter too. Safety. The ability to relax fully in someone's presence without bracing for impact. The sense that this person will not use your softness against you. Women don't always talk about this in those exact terms, but if you were to ask almost any woman what she finds most attractive in a long-term partner, she will describe in some way or another a man who feels stable, steady, grounded, a man whose calm can de-escalate a tense room instead of accidentally turning it into a war zone. If that's you, if your emotional baseline is consistent, if you don't rattle easily, if you can process your stress instead of redistributing it onto the people closest to you, that is not a small thing. That is one of the greatest gifts you can bring into a relationship. Don't underestimate it. 3, accountability is strength, even when it doesn't feel like it. Here is a belief that has quietly wrecked more relationships than anyone talks about. The idea that admitting you were wrong makes you look weak. It doesn't. The opposite is true. Accountability, genuine, clean, no excuse accountability, is one of the clearest signs of emotional maturity that a woman can witness in a man. And it shows up in moments that might feel tiny, but land with enormous weight. It's the apology that doesn't have a but attached to the end of it. It's following through on something you said you'd do, even when it would have been easy to forget. It's saying, "I don't know," instead of confidently making something up. It's owning a mistake without immediately looking for someone else to share the blame with. These things sound simple. They are not common. What accountability does, what it really does, is something that goes far beyond any single argument or misunderstanding. It builds trust. Not the surface level kind, but the structural kind. The kind that makes a woman think, if things get hard, and they will, because things always do, this man will not disappear into defensiveness. He won't gaslight me into thinking I imagined the problem. He will look at himself honestly and then do something about what he finds. That trust is the entire architecture of a long-term relationship. A man who can be accountable is a man she can grow with. Because growth requires honesty, and honesty requires the courage to see yourself clearly, even when the view is uncomfortable. So many men, so many people choose the easier path. They deflect, they flip the narrative. They find the tiny thread of someone else's fault and pull on it until the whole thing unravels into your mess instead of theirs. The man who doesn't do that, he stands out like a candle in a blackout. If accountability is something you practice, even imperfectly, even when it stings a little, you are already showing a woman something she may not have seen in a very long time. 4, the art of opening up without drowning her in it. Let's talk about something that lives in an uncomfortable middle space, because most conversations about vulnerability tend to collapse it into a binary. Either you open up or you don't. Either you're emotionally available or you're closed off. Either you share your feelings freely or you're a stone wall. But the real green flag? It's not on either extreme. It lives somewhere quieter and harder to describe. Great women, emotionally intelligent, secure, genuinely available women don't want a man who is sealed shut. Stoicism that turns into silence, distance, and the perpetual sense that you're talking to someone who isn't really there, that is its own kind of loneliness. Women feel it acutely. But here's what also doesn't work. The man who uses vulnerability as a strategy, who trauma dumps on a second date and frames it as being real and open, who unloads his entire emotional history in a way that subtly asks her to hold it, carry it, manage it. That's not openness. That's transference. And women who are paying attention can feel the difference between someone sharing themselves and someone handing over a weight they'd like her to wear. The green flag version of this lives in the balance. It's the man who can say, that situation at work has been getting to me, without spiraling into a 3-hour processing session. It's the man who can talk about a difficult chapter of his past with reflection rather than raw, unresolved pain that turns the conversation into emotional labor. It's the man who expresses interest and warmth without clinging to her response, like it's the only thing keeping him afloat. He listens as much as he speaks. He shares without oversharing. He's present without being heavy. I genuinely cannot overstate how rare this is. Most people haven't found this balance in themselves yet, and that's not a criticism. It's just the truth. Emotional regulation is a skill. Knowing the difference between authentic vulnerability and using emotions to get needs met, that takes real self-awareness. If you've done the work to find that middle ground, if you can hold your own emotional world without needing someone else to hold it for you while also letting people in with genuine warmth, women see that, they feel it, and they remember it. 5, intentionality, the thing that separates. Interesting from, I can see a future with this person. There's a version of dating that feels like floating. Both people show up when it's convenient. The effort comes and goes. One week, there's enthusiasm and energy. The next, there's silence that neither person quite knows how to interpret, hot and cold, present and distant, interested and unavailable. It's exhausting. And it's become so normalized that when something different comes along, it almost feels suspicious. That something different is intentionality. An intentional man is consistent, not perfect, consistent. His effort doesn't spike dramatically when he's feeling good and vanish when life gets complicated. What he says tends to match what he does. He knows, at least broadly, what he's looking for, and he behaves in alignment with that. Not just toward the woman he's dating, but toward his own life, his own goals, his own standards for how he wants to show up in the world. Intentionality isn't just about romance. It's a character trait that shows up everywhere. The way someone tends to their friendships, the way they pursue their work, the way they handle the ordinary Tuesday when nobody's watching. And women pick up on it. Not always consciously, not always immediately, but they feel it, the steadiness of it, the reliability of it. What intentionality communicates at its core is respect. Respect for her time, for her energy, for the emotional investment she's making when she opens herself up to the possibility of something real. Mixed signals are not mysterious or exciting. They're draining. They force women to second-guess themselves, to audit their own reactions, to wonder if they're asking for too much simply by wanting someone to show up the way they said they would. The man who doesn't make her do any of that, who shows up with a consistency she can trust, is an extraordinary find. Not because he's performing stability, but because he actually has it. If you move through the world with intention, not rigidly, but purposefully, that quality will always be visible to someone who's paying attention. And the women worth having, they're always paying attention. 6, your presence makes her life feel lighter, and that's everything. Of all 6 green flags, this one might be the one that matters most. Not just in the early stages of dating, but across the entire arc of a relationship. When a woman says a man is boyfriend material, when she talks about him to her friends with that particular quality in her voice, the one that sounds like relief as much as excitement, what she is often describing, without using these exact words, is this: my life feels better when he's in it. Not easier in the sense that he's carrying everything. Not better in the sense that he's become her therapist, her fixer, her keeper, just better. Lighter, more spacious. He communicates clearly so misunderstandings don't metastasize into resentment. He resolves things instead of being a constant source of new things to resolve. He supports what she's building instead of feeling threatened by it. He brings moments of genuine joy and humor and steadiness into ordinary days. He doesn't take more energy than he gives. That last part is crucial. He doesn't take more energy than he gives. There's a kind of person, most of us have encountered one, whose presence is a net drain. Every interaction with them leaves you slightly more tired than before. They're not necessarily bad people, but being around them requires management, diplomacy, a kind of low-grade alertness that never fully switches off. And then there's the person whose presence is additive. You put down the phone after talking to them and feel inexplicably a little better. You walk away from dinner and notice you're smiling without really knowing why. They contribute something to your life that is hard to name but immediately felt when it's absent. Relationships, good ones, lasting ones, the kind people build lives around, are supposed to add to your life. They're supposed to bring something in: connection, warmth, growth, laughter, perspective, peace. They are never supposed to subtract from who you are or cost you more than they give. If you are someone who contributes calm instead of chaos, clarity instead of confusion, support instead of competition, if the people in your life tend to feel a little lighter when they're around you, that is not a coincidence. That is character. And in a world full of people who complicate each other, a man who makes things feel cleaner and warmer and more possible is something extraordinary. You're already more of a green flag than you think. Here's what I want you to sit with after reading this. If you recognized yourself in these 6 traits, even imperfectly, even partially, you are already ahead of most of what's out there. Not because the bar is low, but because these things are genuinely rare. Initiative without control, calm without coldness, accountability without defensiveness, emotional openness without overwhelm, intentionality without rigidity, presence that adds instead of depletes. None of this requires perfection. It never did. The men who embody these qualities aren't the ones with flawless track records or zero baggage or every part of their life figured out. They're the ones who are doing the quiet, unglamorous work of knowing themselves, of trying to show up with integrity, even on the days when it would be easier not to. Women notice that work, maybe not always consciously, maybe not always immediately, but they feel it in the texture of every interaction, in the way a conversation leaves them feeling seen instead of diminished, in the way a man's consistency starts to feel like solid ground instead of shifting sand. So if this is you, if you take initiative without making it about power, if your calm is something people feel before you even speak, if you own your mistakes without a performance, if you can be open without being a burden, if your effort is reliable rather than random, if your presence genuinely makes things better, then hear this clearly. You are a green flag. You might not see it yet. You might be so used to the noise of everything that's supposedly wrong with modern dating that you've forgotten to look at what you're already doing right. But someone will see it. Someone already does. And that someone, when she finds you, when she really finds you, is going to feel like she won something she didn't even know she was looking for. That's what this is all about, not being perfect, not performing, just being the kind of person that makes love feel like something safe to step into. You're already there. You just have to trust it.